There's a layer in the old build process that doesn't exist anymore, and most teams haven't figured out what to replace it with, so they're still running the old one on muscle memory. This week, Jenny Wen published an interview on Lenny's podcast. She's the head of design for Claude at Anthropic, and before that, she was director of design at Figma. In the episode, she talked about how the design process is dead and what is actually replacing it. So we're going to break down what changed, why, and then walk through the exact process that replaced it. To understand what replaced it, you have to understand why it existed. With the old process, you'd define requirements first, then a designer would take those into Figma and make a mock-up of how the app is supposed to look. That Figma file was the handoff document between what someone wanted and what got built. A front-end engineer would then convert that file into code. Meanwhile, the backend engineer was building in parallel because an API spec was defined up front, so both sides could move at the same time and everything connected at the end. Jenny describes this as a process designers treated as ritual. This was the standard across the industry. Most people explaining why it's changing miss the reason it existed in the first place. Simon Willison, a developer who writes one of the most widely read technical blogs in the space, wrote up Jenny's Berlin talk in January and added the insight her talk implies but doesn't say directly. Building with AI significantly reduces the cost of building the wrong thing. Before AI, a flawed direction meant months of wasted engineering time. A small mistake in the front end meant 10 times the work during implementation. So teams justified every step. The research, the personas, the user journeys, the wireframes, the spec doc, all of it was protection against building the wrong thing at scale. So what actually changed in the process? Engineering speed changed first, and it changed faster than most people processed. Jenny said a few years ago, 60 to 70% of her time as a designer was spent mocking and prototyping. Now it's 30 to 40%. She didn't decide to work differently. The engineers around her started spinning off multiple agents in parallel, and suddenly the bottleneck wasn't engineering anymore. Engineering changed first, and design was forced to follow. Vision timelines changed too. Design used to produce 2 to 5 year visions. Now the technology is moving fast enough that 3 to 6 months out is the realistic scope, and it's not necessarily a deck anymore. It's a prototype that points people in a direction. The same thing happened to the translation step. When an agent can take a requirements document and build a working interface, there's no translation layer. The agent writes the code. There's no Figma file to translate because there's never a Figma file. Also, if you are enjoying our content, consider pressing the hype button because it helps us create more content like this and reach out to more people. When we get client work, this is the exact shift we've had to make. Now, the design process changed, but the part that didn't change is requirements. Bad requirements waste the whole build, and most teams skip straight to the spec. That's the wrong order. When you're building a prototype, you don't need a tech stack or an API spec. You need to know enough to build something that looks and feels like the real product so you can put it in front of someone and get a yes or a no. So before you touch the prototype, start with actors. An actor is a person who interacts with the system, a specific person with a specific goal, but who uses it determines what it needs to do. If you have someone who submits content and someone who approves it, those are two different interfaces with two different first screens. Then look at where the views split. At some point in most products, two different actors hit the same URL and see completely different things. An admin sees a management panel. A regular user sees their dashboard. Last thing is constraints. Don't tell the agent what tools to use. Tell it what it can't do and what it can't cost. This would also make the technical decisions much easier later on. Now we implemented all of those specific rules into this create PRD prompt, which basically just interviews you, acts as your PRD interviewer, and interviews you according to the rules, asking you a bunch of different questions. And at the end, you end up with a PRD markdown file, which is going to be used in the later stages of the process. That PRD file is what everything else builds on. So the next step is turning it into structure for the front end. For this, we use this layer prompt, which essentially tells the agent to look at the PRD, which again is not a full PRD with all the technical requirements. Produce two things. It asks it to produce the pages and the modals that are going to go with your prototype, and then the user flows. Now, obviously, pages and modals are important for structure so that everything the agent needs to implement in the front end is planned beforehand. We've continued to talk about planning before taking action and why it's so important for the agent and the context window, so we don't need to dive deep into that. But with user flows, it's important to define the actions of each actor. Since we are already focusing on the actors themselves and not the features, it's also important to define the user flows so that the agent can implement the proper interaction states and the proper navigation for the full UI prototype. So we end up with two files where the architecture.md has the pages, the modals, and the user flows that we discussed. After that, we asked it to install a Next.js app because that's the tech stack that we normally use, Next.js with a super base. And this is what it actually came up with. Overall, the design looks really great, but there's a specific reason for that. Also, it wasn't mentioned earlier, but the build was a community platform with channels, products, and courses. There are two actors, basically the member and the creator as well, where the creator has all the administrative functionalities such as creating a channel, adding a product, or uploading a course, as well as looking at different statistics. In our opinion, for the first prototype that's been made, the design looks really great, but the UX is not that great because normally we don't want a dashboard like this. And this is actually the whole point. That kind of fix used to cost days. Here it cost minutes because AI can do these modifications really, really quickly. And since there's no backend here, it also doesn't have to deal with all that extra stuff. It's just the front end prototype. Now, normally AI doesn't really make these good looking websites and interfaces. And the reason this actually looks good is because we used this general purpose front end skill, which Anthropic offered in one of their blogs. We highly recommend using this before having your UI implemented. Just save it as a /command or a skill so that your agent can actually use it. Now, if you're working for a client, all you have to do is show them this prototype, which is fully working in terms of functionality with mock data because it's not going to do a database right now. You can show this to your client, get their approval, and if not, make the changes and then proceed with the rest of the build. These task lists are one of the reasons we can now really ask these agents to make fully functioning prototypes. It's because of these task lists, because of task persistence, and because everything is structured. This is why making that architecture.md file was really important, because it allows the agent to build a perfectly optimized task list so that it doesn't hallucinate. After that, we move to the backend implementation. Now, normally, there are two things you could do. You could keep Next.js, keep the front end separate in Next.js, and then implement the backend as a separate Python service. But that depends on the type of application that you're working with. For most of the projects that you guys would probably build, Next.js is going to be fine. You specifically need a separate Python backend when you need these extensive libraries that aren't available in Next.js, or if you need some serious background job orchestration to optimize your site or its functions. In that case, you might need to have a separate backend. Otherwise, the Next.js backend is pretty much all you're going to need. Before we touch the backend, we need to know what the front end actually needs from it. So we had the agent look at the front end code, the PRD, and the architecture file, and write an API spec. After that, we asked it to use the 3 documents to create the full Supabase schema because we're using a Supabase plus Next.js as the front end. It basically needs to create the schemas that are going to house the data for the app. Normally, if you ask your agent, it's going to tell you to go ahead, get your API keys from the database, and manually paste SQL queries to create the tables. But instead of that, you should be using the Supabase MCP. Always try to use an MCP for whatever service you're working with because it automates a lot of the stuff. For example, we didn't even have to look at the projects here. It automatically created the project, ran the queries for the schema, and automatically ran the migrations. So we basically had to do nothing. After your database has been set up, you're going to connect the front end to the database. Now again, there is a clear distinction here. You don't have to connect the back end to the database because it's already integrated in the front end. The front end directly talks with the database, making the integration and the overall complexity much easier. Now we are actually partnered with Warp for this video, and they recently released Oz, which is an orchestration platform for different cloud agents. These cloud agents are handy for tasks that you just want to delegate and you know that the agent would be able to complete on its own. So up till now, the agent had connected the front end to the database and the app was basically working according to that. But to add stuff like payment processing, new notifications, rate limiting, or analytics on the site, we actually need a dedicated backend API layer so that we can integrate all of that. For that, we created an environment using Oz and ran a cloud agent, which asked it to build that dedicated backend layer. And after about 15 minutes, it was done with the task and the whole thing was ready. To actually make this functional and start accepting users, all that was left now was just Google authentication, Stripe integration, and a few small details we needed to fix. Now you've seen the full process and the prompts have been right there on screen. But if you want all of these prompts as a step-by-step workflow that you can just follow for your own projects, we're putting that in AI Labs Pro. For those who don't know, it's our community where you get ready-to-use templates you can plug directly into your projects for this video and all previous ones. If you found value in what we do and want to support the channel, this is the best way to do it. The link's in the description. That brings us to the end of this video. If you'd like to support the channel and help us keep making videos like this, you can do so by using the super thanks button below. As always, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.